Abby wasn't sure what woke her up, but something did. Sitting up, Abby rubbed her eyes and yawned. She listened, expecting to hear Mike moving around. When she didn't, she parted the overlapped blankets of the makeshift hiding tent. She grinned. Mike was totally zonked out of the office chair, his head lolled backward, his mouth hanging open. Tucking Duck under her arm, Abby stood. She tiptoed towards the desk. "Mike?" she whispered. Abby stepped forward and poked Mike lightly in the bicep. He snorted, but he didn't wake up. She grinned again, wired this time. Cool. Abby quickly ducked back inside her hidey tent. Setting down Dolph, she dug inside her sleeping bag to get overalls she stashed there. Mike had thought she'd spend the night in her PJs, but she hoped he'll get the chance she had now, and she was prepared for it. Abby quickly changed her into a pale pink tee and pulled darker pink overalls over it. She stuffed her PJs in the sleeping bag, and she tucked Dolph into the bag too. Then she stood. "I'll be right back," Abby told her dead-to-the-world brother. Abby stepped over the office door. She eased it open, and she slipped out into the hallway. At the fingers of his conscience, Mike thought he heard a soft click of the door closing, or was it a chip-off chirp of one of the birds he could hear in the trees? A single bird chirped from the branch owing in the breeze. The branch creaked, and its leaves rustled. Abby stepped through the archway and surveyed the huge empty room that stretched out before her. No, not empty. Abby spotted a big pile of sad-looking tables and chairs. The shape of the pile reminded Abby of a sleeping bear. She hoped the table and chair bear was happy. Abby's glance moved past the table and chair bear. On the other side of the room, wide stage curtains were closed over the long stands. She smiled and headed that way. Climbing up the short flight of stairs to the stage, Abby headed toward the middle of the curtains. When she got there, a thud sounded from behind the curtains, then a clickering clank. "Hello?" Abby called out. She parted the curtains and looked behind them. The stage was like the inside of a hidey tent in the middle of the night. Abby couldn't see a thing. "I know you're back there," Abby said. "You might as well come out." A burst of children's laughter crackled from the stage speaker. How fun, Abby thought. Looking up at the speakers above her, she giggled. "Clever," she said, smile. As if in response to Abby's comment, the girl of the grinding metals and several thumping footsteps started coming Abby's way. Abby's smile wavered a bit, but she was sure, well, pretty sure, everything was okay. The footstep belonged to something really big. Maybe it wasn't what Abby thought it was. Abby took a step back, but she held on to the curtain. She strained to see into the backstage area. A lurching surge of movement, more footsteps. They made the stage shake under Abby's feet, were coming towards Abby. And then Abby tilted her head back and glanced up, way, way up, into a big white eyes of a bear. It was much more real-looking bear than the table and chair bear. Mike, feeling no need to run because there's no point, walks out to the flickering of trees at the edge of the road. The black car rolls away, but Mike doesn't even glance at it. He was more interested in the blond boy, who was sitting by himself in the middle of the dirt and gravel road, his back to Mike. Mike moved towards the boy. "I know who you are," he says. The boy ignores him. "All of you." Mike goes on. "You're those kids, the ones who disappeared." Mike stopped a few feet in front of the boy, who was using a stick to draw something in the dirt. "A long time ago," Mike says, "I had a brother who disappeared too." The stick stopped moving. The boy's head lifted. Just a little. "I don't know how it's possible that you can be here like this," Mike says, "inside my dream. But I have to believe that you're here to help." The boy doesn't respond. "Please," Mike says, bending towards the boy, "help me remember the man who took my brother. Help me so he never hurts another kid again. I can't do it by myself. I tried, but it's buried too deep." The boy dropped his stick. He stands and faces Mike. In flat tones, the boy speaks. "If we show you, what will you give us?" he asks. Mike doesn't hesitate. "Anything," he says. "Anything you want." The little boy rubs his upturned nose with a dirty hand, leaving a smudge of dirt on the top of it. His pale brown furrows together as he twists his lips, clearly thinking hard. Mike waits. And then the boy vanishes. Mike dashed towards and stand where the boy just stood. He's frustrated, but he's also infuriated. Things are unfolded differently. The boy talked directly to him. He's making progress. Mike glances down the dirt. He leans to look what the boy drew. The drawing is a stick figure, but its shape is unmistakable. The boy drew a rabbit. Mike opened his eyes and rotated his stiff neck. He rubbed a sore muscle and looked around the dim, quiet office. Remembering that he wasn't here alone, Mike looked over to the Heidi tent. He erupted from his feet. The office chair skidded backward and slammed into the crazonet. The tent was wide open. The sleeping bag inside of it was empty. Mike immediately charged towards the closed office door before he got halfway to it. A high-pitched scream stopped him from his tracks. Mike's heart went from 0 to infinity in a nanosecond. He spun around and rushed to the CCTV monitors, scanning them quickly. His eyes nearly shot out of his head and ping-ponged around the room. "Abby!" Mike grasped. He took off, pell-mell, towards the dining room. How could I be so stupid? Mike asked himself as he barreled down the hall. It was Garrett all over again. "Abby!" Mike shouted as he burst through the archway and charged into the dining room. Mike's intestines felt like they were reaching up inside of him to strangle his lungs as he blasted through the room. He kept his gaze, his horrified gaze, on a massive jumble of animatronics that were riding in front of the main stage. Abby's screams were coming from within the snarl of metal and rotten fur. What were those things doing to her? "Stop!" Mike screamed. "Stop it! Let her go!" Racing past the pile of furniture, Mike grabbed a broken chair. It was the only weapon available to him. As Mike raised the chair over his head, post to strike, one of the metal and fur mounds wrapped around Abby broke free of the it was Freddy. The gargantuan bear charged toward straight Mike. Mike's breathing choked in his throat. He wanted to turn and run, but he couldn't. He had to save his sister. Mike tightened his grip on the makeshift weapon. He braced his feet for the linotone floor. Freddy came closer and closer and closer, and he stopped a few inches from Mike. Mike held his breath. Gears gurring, eyes flashing in obvious anger, the animatronic bear leaned down and put his face right in front of Mike's. The bear's scratched and dirty black nose nearly touched Mike's nose. Mike closed his eyes, screwed up his face. He started to swing the chair, even though he knew it wasn't going to help him at all. "Mike!" Abby called out. "You're here!" Mike opened his eyes and watched in disbelief as his sister, who was just fine, skipped toward him to the bear. She let out a carefree laugh, and she gave the animatronic creature a big hug. Mike gasped at his sister. "They wouldn't stop tickling me, Mike. I thought I was gonna die." "Seriously? Tickling?" Mike lowered his arm. The chair hit the floor in the chatter. What the heck was going on? Mike struggled to compute the situation, to put it in some caprosonic box, but he couldn't do it. "Freddy," Abby said, "this is my brother Mike. He works here." Freddy raised his head away from Mike's face. Just a little. Mike didn't move a muscle. His intestine eased up in his lungs. Infinitesimally, the animatronic's eyes were still bright, but the candescents didn't give off the same signal. The rage Mike had felt, bursting coming from the bear, was giving away what seemed to be cautious curiosity. Freddy straightened, but he kept studying Mike. He scanned Mike from head to toe. Mike hoped he passed mustard. "Abby," Mike said quietly, as if he stood in front of a wild animal. Actually, the wild animal had been an improvement on this situation. "Are you okay?" Abby grabbed Mike's hand. She giggled. "What's going on?" Mike asked, just as softly. Abby looked up at Mike with more happiness than he ever seen in her eyes. "Come on," she said. "I want you to meet the others." "The others?" Feeling like he had little choice, Mike let Abby pull him towards, too dazed to resist. Mike realized Abby was dragging him to where the rest of the animatronic piles were separated itself from different characters. The chick, the bunny, the fox. The fox with a sharp metal hook. Great, Mike thought. Mike was still early wary, but the other three animatronics seemed to find Mike as interesting as Freddy did. They eyed him with what truly looked like eager curiosity. Mike found himself intrigued in how aging monstrosities of metal and fur could look so childlike. "Mike," Abby said, "this is Chica, Bonnie, and Foxy." She turned to the animatronics. "Everyone, this is Mike." One by one, and more like a bit shyly, the animatronics lift their ragged paws and wave at Mike, acting from social consternation. Mike started to lift his hand to the return wave. He immediately realized what he was doing, and he lowered his arm. In spite of the animatronic's apparent friendliness, Mike's self-preservation system backed up in a step. When he did, Mike nearly bumped into Freddy, who was lumbering back to rejoin the others. Mike looked at the furry robots to his sister. This is a joke, right?" she asked his sister. Mike frowned at the animatronics. Every one of them had broken parts, exposed and unconnected wires, and clearly crushed gears. How were these things moving around? Sure, the animatronics were jerky and cumbersome, but they were functional. How is this possible? Mike looked around. Someone else is here, right? He said. He raised his voice. Someone's controlling them. Someone didn't step forward to take credit. Was it Vanessa? Mike wondered. Who else did he know who might be able to do this? Annoyed, Mike shouted, Very funny, you got us, congratulations. Mike arrowed as he spun in circle. He saw nothing but the empty room. Empty, that is, except for him and Abby and the moving animatronics. You hear me, Mike bellowed. This joke's over. You can come out now. The room threw Mike's words back at him, otherwise silence. Mike tried again. Hello? That, too, after seeming to bounce off the dining room ceiling, returned to Mike. He ground his teeth and looked at animatronics. There's no way, Mike muttered. It's not possible. Mike felt Abby take his hand. He looked down. For once, Mike felt their roles reversed. Mike was the kid, a very dumbstruck kid, and Abby was the knowing adult. It's okay, Mike, Abby said. Her voice was low and even, as if she was talking to a scared kitten. Mike frowned at Abby, then he looked from one animatronic to the next. Since his intestines have settled back where they belong, and his lungs were giving him more air, Mike really looked at the creatures in front of them. Top hat, bib, bunny ears, pirate hook, they were the kids from his dream. The truth hit Mike like a battering ram through the eyes. Whatever was happening with the animatronics was supernatural. Mike's voice cracked as he uttered, in low, low tones, You're them. Beep, beep, beep. At first, Mike thought it was the sound that was coming from inside his brain, a sort of ding, ding, ding of realization. Then he comes to his senses. He looked at his watch. His alarm was going off. He silenced it. Abby frowned at Mike's watch. Do we have to go home now? She asked. Mike looked at the animatronics. I think that's probably a good idea. Abby nodded, her smile gone. She was clearly let down, but she didn't argue. Mike started to pull Abby towards the lobby. She freed her hand from his grip. Hang on, she said. Abby pulled her drawing pad from the pocket of her bright pink overalls. Then she dropped a cross-legged position of the floor. She began scribbling away with one of her colored pencils. Abby, Mike said. 1 sec. She said, I'm almost done. It was more than 1 second, but it wasn't more than 20 or so. Abby popped to her feet and tore on the paper she'd been drawing on. Scribbling over the blue bunny, she handed it to him. The bunny, Bonnie, took the paper from Abby delicately, as if it was the most precious thing in the world. He held up the paper so the other animatronics could see. Mike took a step to his left so he could see it too. Mike's chest grinned in emotion he couldn't quite quantify. Was he touched? Worried? Freaked out? Abby had drawn a red heart on the paper. I had a lot of fun tonight, Abby told the animatronics. Thank you for playing with me. Before Mike could stop her, Abby rushed towards. She threw herself to the animatronics, and they all folded her arms around her. Every muscle in Mike's body went taut, like a bowed down back, ready to fight. Immediately he relaxed, though, when he realized the intimidating robots were just giving Abby a goodbye hug. Mike was tempted to pinch himself to see if it was a dream. Not his usual dream, but a dream nonetheless. The scene was as nonsensical as a dream, but Mike knew it wasn't one. He really was watching a bunch of molted, old, jumbo-sized robot animals hugging his little sister. The spectacle was both tender and terrifying.